Just a brief update, the podcast is in the workings and should be done soon. And as a brief reminder, myself, Editor Nightwalker, Amelia Cloudwatcher, and now Mia the Gamer will be chatting about Star Stable during the podcast. Keep an eye out for it. I'm hoping to have it done soon. Thanks, guys. Horse games in general are a disappointment. From being boring and dull to having predatory prices, we can honestly say that in the last few years, a good horse game, except for maybe one, has been hard to find. But one game in particular aims to change that, and that game is called Astride. Astride is an upcoming open-world horse-riding RPG from Rado Games that is making my head spin and my heart jump. Over the course of a few months, the creators of Astride have been sharing some information, visuals and possibilities for the game. And today we're going to take a look and see if we can get an overall idea of what the game will be like when it finally releases as a full game. This video will be looking at what the website promised, what the recent survey showed, their own frequently asked questions, and a couple of questions I had a chance to ask one of their creators of Astride. Thank you very much for making time for me. I will also be bringing up some other games from time to time to give us an idea of what we might expect and what we can't expect. If all goes well, there should be an early access release for the game in late 2022. However, they are opening the Steam Access page this Friday, so if you're interested in adding it to your wishlist, now's the best time to do it. However, the early access released will obviously not be the game in its entirety. That will only be a taste of what we might get. Furthermore, keep in mind that although these are stated possibilities, they remain preliminary ideas and concepts. Not everything you see here will be necessarily implemented, or if it is, it might only happen later. It's possibilities from their end and speculation from mine. So let's keep our expectations realistic and get into it. The gameplay of Astride is a combination of RPG, genetics, realistic writing and some story and adventure to go with it. Let's first look at what they're planning, and then we can look at other games to get an idea of what we can expect. Currently, they are planning dressage, show jumping, cross-country and gated as the opening disciplines. The disciplines themselves will be handled with some care. Dressage, for example, will not be just a dance game, but will instead give you some control of the horse during the ride. Moves like piaffe to go with, and I quote, comprehensive dressage system is also planned, as well as some lead changes. Jumping will not be locked to the arena and will be something we can do while free roaming in the open world. More disciplines will be added, like Western, Baroque, racing, and even a dimension of harness racing. So far the disciplines are the bog standard, with the exception of the gated classes. This intrigues me as I can't recall a single game that has ever implemented this discipline before. If you do know of one, please let me know down below, I'd love to play it. As for the gameplay, I'm curious to see if the jumps will be the basic hit space to jump, or if it will be something more along the lines of Ride Equestrian Simulation, where you had to adjust the stride accordingly. But, and this is a big but, they are not going to be doing the dancing game, which is wonderful news. Too many horse games today cop out in the dressage section and just make it an extra bit to do, with no care of how intricate dressage really is. That's a lot to look forward to. And yes, they are planning a full open world to explore, something I think we can all get behind. The world will have seasons, fall, summer, spring and winter. And when riding, your clothing can determine how well you handle the current season. Warm clothes will help you in winter, but not in summer, etc. This offers a certain element of realism to the game, which is always welcome. The game will also have a main storyline, which will be peppered with small side quests. However, for those hoping for a magical adventure filled with unicorns, Pegasus and Kelpies, you're out of luck. Astride is currently aiming for a more grounded, realistic story. But on their page it does say, explore the mythology of Astride, so although grounded in realism, they seem to be adding a few elements of wonder to keep the story intriguing. The side quests will let you earn in-game money. Training horses can also bring in some cash, which you can most likely use to buy tack, buy new horses, they are planning on an open horse market, and finally upgraded buildings. We will be able to edit and change our ranch, plots and stables, although not on the level of Sims. But then again, this isn't a building game, it's a horse game. So expect some customization, but not too heavily, as this is not the focus of the game. There may also be pets like cats and dogs, although this feature will only come later on in the production. What it entails is still a bit of a mystery, but even if these animals are just barn animals, I'll actually be more than happy with that. They are also planning on adding some fauna to the game, wildlife, chickens, cows, etc. to make the world feel more alive. You can also sell horses and buy new ones from the aforementioned open horse market, and the current breeds that will be available are the Icelandic horse, Norwegian fjord horse, Norwegian warmblood horse, Norwegian dole horse, and the Northland horse. I really like this. It's something new and different, not just Arabian, thoroughbred and Frisian over and over again. However, I do hope that the horse breeds will be kept to a minimum. Too many games today seem to think that the only part that really matters is how many horse breeds a game has. It's not about how many horse breeds you have, it's about how unique those horses are, and if it actually matters that you buy a new breed. A slightly different animation won't make it worth it. Did you hear that, Star Stable? Breeding is another aspect they're adding. Although this will only be part of the game later, they do expand on it somewhat. We may, for example, have a small chance of getting twins, and we can crossbreed, sort of. The horse with the dominant gene will essentially be the result of the crossbreed. Genetics is something they've been chattering about in the survey, and I'm quite intrigued by it, as it will offer a level of depth to the game. Horses will in short carry over genes to their offspring, so 2 good jumpers might produce a great jumper. Although you can't change genetics directly, more training and time spent with the horse will most likely boost the chances of carrying over genes and giving a better foal. Perhaps a little like Alicia Online, although that game has more of a gambling aspect than honest breeding. Genetics will also play a role in the horse's abilities, if it's a good jumper, a good dressage horse, or if it's meant for the gated showring. All of this sounds wonderful and brings to mind games like G1 Jockey, where genetics and ability played a huge and fun role throughout the game. That game in particular hid certain abilities away, and you could only unlock them if you managed to trigger them. I love that about G1 Jockey. It made it seem more realistic, and it made me want to ride the horses to find out what they could do. I had a chance to speak to one of the developers about this, and this is something that they quite liked, although it doesn't mean it's something that they will implement, only something that they consider. Horses will also have skill trees, which will determine their main discipline, and they will have personalities. How they describe it in short is the horse is either energetic or lazy. A horse that is lazy will need to be pushed, and a horse that is energetic will need to be held back. This in turn brings to mind the game once again, Ride Equestrian Simulation, where you had cowardly or courageous horses, each of which required a different playstyle. This sounds marvelous, and I do hope they expand on it, but not so much that it becomes muddled. Equestrian the game, for example, attempted to add this to its own game, but it failed because the communication was so poor. I don't always know if the horse is being difficult, if the game is being buggy, or if I'm just mucking up the controls. Personality is a great idea, but it must be well translated to the player so that I know if the horse is acting up or if the game is breaking. Riders will also be able to distribute their own skill points, suggesting leveling up during the game. I can't wait. This is also an RPG, and this makes me a happy horse girl. True horse game RPGs are absolutely non-existent, no matter what SSO slaps on their name. But it looks like Astride is taking great strides to make this an actual RPG. There is not a horse game in the world that has skill trees that I know of, so I'll be using Kingdom Come Deliverance to give you an idea of what exactly skill trees can encompass. In Kingdom Come Deliverance, skill trees are made up of things such as alchemy, horsemanship, drinking, pickpocketing, and so on. When you put a point in any of these skills, your ability goes up and you are then better at that skill. With horsemanship, for example, your riding becomes more confident, so your horse doesn't spook as often and you don't fall off as easily. Simple. Traits in turn are called perks in Kingdom Come Deliverance. Each perk you choose has an effect on your character and can help you become better at a certain concept, like first aid or horsemanship. If Astride takes the same route, we might see some skill trees for dressage, show jumping, and showing, and each of these eventually unlocking possible perks to choose from, like well balanced for show jumping and easy rhythm for dressage. Specific perks that allow you to choose a clear path in your riding. Another feature to consider for an RPG is a good story element. You can't really have an RPG without being able to apply your skills against the world around you. You need to have a chance to fill in the role you are playing. I'm wondering if, like with other RPGs, we might see something like social skills, like charisma or intimidation, that will affect the world around me. But now I'm talking about larger games, like Dragon Age or Mass Effect. Astride is a small team of 5, so whatever they can give, I'll be happy with. Besides the major elements, a few details have been made available, and much like the rest of the game, they sound absolutely delightful. You can customize your character, of course. You will also be able to fall off your horse. Excellent. Lead your horse around and see your horses in the paddocks and stalls. This is of particular interest, as your horse will always be, and I quote, be interactable no matter where they are. You can also customize the horse's mane and tail, and they promise a big library of facial markings, coat markings, leg markings, coat variation, and that will be randomized. You will of course not be able to change your horse's appearance after you've bought it, but you can change mane and tail styles, and you can edit your horse's nickname, but not its registered name, which does make sense. Although you can register your horse as anything, be aware that there will be some restrictions on this to prevent some unsavory names. One perk that a lot of players would like to see is that horses will be able to get hurt. I never thought that this sentence would bring so much people so much happiness. From cuts to diseases, they really want to see horses be able to get hurt, and that then we as the rider have to nurse them back to health. This feature brings to mind Alicia Online, which has much the same feature. A horse can get hurt muscles, get cuts or hurt bones, and you have to treat it at the ranch. Or if you're short on cash, leave it and it will heal on its own. My riding stable life with horses had the same feature, but it took much longer for your horse to heal and you had to keep at it. Now the designers have made it very clear that this is not something that has been set in stone. This is something that they're still deciding on the logistics and if it's possible. However, it is a feature that a lot of people want, so only time will tell if this is something that they will be able to implement. However, even if the horses can get hurt, they can only die from old age, and they can reach up to 30 years in age in total, although genetics will determine how old your horse can get. After they've died, you can go visit them in the retirement field, so although yes, you won't be able to ride them anymore, you can still visit them when you like. Stable hands will be available to help out at the farm, and you can possibly switch between first and third person perspectives. Thank the stars, I love both, but some games lock you in one possibility, which drives me crazy. I'm looking at you, Kingdom Come Deliverance. This is not going to be a true multiplayer, not in the sense like Star Stable Online. It's going to be more like Animal Crossing, where players can create instances for other friends to come and visit their ranches, help out and then ride together. So yeah, think Animal Crossing, not Star Stable Online. The game is mainly single player with some multiplayer elements, which is actually fine by me. A lot of games today are online, and that means I have to interact with people, or worse, they need to spoil my immersion by standing on rooftops or swearing at each other in chat. Fun times. They are also looking at the possibility of making competitions online, which would not be a bad idea, as it will add the X factor and should encourage players to get better at the game. Perhaps a basic top scoring rank? The ability to watch uploaded replays from other players? There's a lot they can do here without needing to have actual big servers. Astride will be releasing on Steam and for PC, Linux and Macs first, with the possibility of other platforms to come. They are planning on releasing the first playable early access sometime late in 2022. The game will initially cost €25 and will be releasing worldwide. But the good news is, there will be no in-game purchases. Thank God. With the amount of games currently taking microtransactions, in-game purchases, monetary strategy to squeeze out as much money from their players as possible, it is so nice to see Astride taking the more traditional route. Buy the game. Buy DLC and have fun. The DLC will include new horse breeds, new tack, accessories, and I'm wondering if it will add more stories. We'll have to wait and see. But here is a direct quote from a conversation I had with them. Astride will not be using microtransactions. All of the team members at Astride despise the use of microtransactions, especially the pay-to-win feel that some games may get. As long as you are playing Astride, there won't be any adverts or sale pitches in-game. The DLCs will be available through Steam as well, but we want Astride to be about the horses and the experience, not about selling the most tax sets for real money. After purchasing Astride, there won't be any paywalls or microtransactions. Astride is after all the game that we, the 3 horse-crazy developers out of 5, grew up wanting but never got to experience. It's a passion project. So far, the game looks so promising. There was so much to do and still early days yet, we're going to have to show some patience before we'll see the game they are hoping to give us. We as horse game enthusiasts are hungry for a good horse game, and that's really not our fault. That's the fault of an industry that failed us, the reason why we're so desperate to find a good horse game, and why we're so quick to put all our hopes and dreams on one, or defend another to the death. But we should be careful that our enthusiasm doesn't hobble Astride, that our passion and eagerness for a good horse game doesn't overwhelm them with ideas we would only see in AAA titles that took 5 to 7 years to develop. They are not Rocksteady, they are not Bethesda. They are 5 passionate people who want to make a good horse game, and so many games are in development hell because the pressures from fans and players were simply too high. Saurian comes to mind. I'm personally looking forward to Astride because the passion is there and the drive as well. I think that with time and a little patience, the game will shape up to be something wonderful, because at the heart of this game are people who understand the frustration of horse gamers. And that's good enough for me.